Hey, you think you want to get into L&O? Hemlock woolly algids make it into Kentucky. Orkins goes on a buying spree, and the Ovillanta makes it into the marketplace. All on this edition of the Pest Geek Podcast.
Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast.
Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest information on pests, products, and politics from today's leading industry sources to help you start, manage, and grow your pest control business. Hey, welcome to another edition of the Pest Geek Podcast. I am Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek. Here every week, we're discussing all things pests. And I had a marvelous week. I had a marvelous weekend. I hope you did too. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you had some time to relax, enjoy your family, and enjoy your work. I know I did, and we're just having a blast right now. Can you believe it? It's been a year since we started the Pest Geek Podcast, which was something that I had thought about for about a year before that, and it took me only 4 months to launch it. I made the original introduction to the podcast. Go back and listen to it. I don't think it was a great introduction, but in December, I think it was, in late December, right before the new year, and it took me about 4 months to actually get everything together and launch the podcast. But here we are 1 year later, and we're kicking it. And I tell you, I'm just having a blast here on Marvelous Mondays, doing this. It's a year's gone by, and like right before my eyes, and I blinked and it was gone. And it is true, time flies when you're having fun. So to me, it feels like it was just yesterday that we started this. And I am so thankful for doing this podcast, doing what we do, sharing what we do with people. And I find it extremely gratifying. We've got a packed show today, folks. I've got a lot of things that I want to cover, but I want to start out the show by always giving thanks to those who listen to us, who are faithful. There's a lot of faithful listeners out there that listen to us every week. I get a lot of email feedback on a continual basis about the podcast and how much it's blessing a lot of people. It's really helping a lot of people out, and I'm encouraged by that. I'm encouraged that what we're doing is actually producing some fruit out there. So thank you. I wanted to thank Green Center of the Americas at GCAIGC, America's only association dedicated to the needs of independent garden centers. And they're following us on Twitter. Hey, check them out. They got a lot of cool stuff. So if you're into L&O, if you're into nurseries, gardens, great amount of information out there. So check them out. Also, I'd like to thank Will White, who works at Nexus Pest Solutions in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, following us on Facebook. Hey, thank you so much for following us on Facebook. I hope to hear from you soon. So thank you. Have you do a lot of work like I do, and outside and in just bad weather all the time, and you're wondering when you're going to get hit with lightning? Well, there's a great little tool called it's a portable lightning detector that detects lightning for up to 25 miles away. It's the AccuRite detector, and you wear it right on your hip, a little device, a little tiny thing. It reminds me of a little beeper. It's a little, probably bigger than a sports watch, and you carry it on you, and it will warn you when lightning has struck somewhere around. So it gives you enough time to put away your equipment, because the last thing I want to do is be out there with a rod in my hand, a metal rod loaded with water, while lightning is going on, and you don't know how fast you can get hit with lightning out there. So it's a great tool. A couple bucks, I think it's like $30 under $40 for this little device. We're going to put a link to it so you can check it out on the podcast. Also, the book of the week. I love this book. I know a lot of people that, I talk to a lot of technicians and a lot of people that wish they could get into selling. And the problem is they got a stigma against salespeople and selling, and they don't think they can be good salespeople. And sales, one of the best salespeople that I've ever met, most of the great salespeople are really people who are down the middle. They're not too emotional. They're not too out there. And they're not too introverted. But they're kind of like right down the middle. They can relate to people. So they're not bouncing off the walls, and they're not hermits. And those are the people that I've known to be the best salespeople. The other best salespeople that I've ever met are people who are actually engineers that got into selling, because they're down that middle too, and they're very practical. You know, they're about consulting. I relate to that because I am not. I'm like a little bit more on the extroverted side than most people. I can talk to anybody, and I can stand up in public, and I have no problem talking to an audience of thousands of people. But some people can't seem to break that, and you could make so much more money in this business if you could learn to sell, and sell across your line, sell across everything that your company makes, and you could make so much more. That's your raise for next year. If you want to get a raise, sell something. And I think the book To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink is an awesome book. When I heard it the first time, I said, man, this is like required reading for every one of my technicians. I mean, it would be one of those things that I would actually get them and say, you got to hear this. There's going to be a test on Friday. Okay. And you get over that stigma about selling and about how you suck as a salesman. I think there's a great value in that book. Check it out. You can use our link. You get it free. audibletrial.com/pestgeek. You can get a free trial, get a free book. That could be one of them if you're looking for a good book. I'm telling you guys, this is a great read. I've bought very few books that I have actually regretted buying. I've got maybe 2 or 3 that, it's okay as a book. I listened to it, and it's okay. But like these books I'm recommending, these are books that have really impacted me. If you take it and you apply what's being taught there. So, check it out. Pest alerts. We've got Hemlock, woolly it's spelled Adelgid in Kentucky. It's a piercing, sucking insect for hemlock trees. And it's devastating on hemlock trees. And they've got it in eastern Kentucky now. So if you are in eastern Kentucky, Dr. John I'm going to butcher his name. Why do these doctors have these crazy names? Obrycki. You figure it out, okay? Department of Entomology chair and state entomologist has confirmed that the hemlock, woolly Adelgid, has come into Kentucky. I'm going to have a link up to that, and it's got a great way, 3 ways that you can treat it. You can do it with root drench, root injection, or trunk injections to treat the trees. And there's a great picture of him or somebody using what it was known as the Kioritz injector, what I bought when I first started, and I started doing studying on how I can lower the impact on the environment by doing root injections versus spraying all the time, because we couldn't get control. I was one of the first people down here doing systemic root drenching and root injection, and I got this Kioritz and this little device, and I found an article from the Forestry Service on how they were treating, I think, hemlocks also out in the forest, and when they couldn't carry a lot of water, and they were using imidacloprid, and they found this, and I found the study fascinating. I said, man, everybody says it can't be done. You need tons of water to use with imidacloprid, and man, I started using this. I started using their recommendation, and wow, talk about being able to treat a lot of trees with this. And then later we converted that into our program. But we were doing root injection treatments way before ficus whitefly ever got here, rugose whitefly. We were doing it 7 years ago. And it's a great. Check out the article. The article is really good on the ways, because if you haven't gotten into lawn and ornamental, and we're going to get into this, it is a great add-on service, but it does have, I'm going to discuss the pros and cons of getting into that business. But I think it's a way for you to have another product, another line. And even if you launch with just one type of product, one type of service, you don't have to go all the way, but you can have incremental income that you can add to your bottom line by doing this. In the business news, Orkin goes on a buying spree. It buys 7 pest control companies in the first quarter of 2016. So if you're in California, they bought Orange County Pest Control, its sister company, Riverside County Pest Control in Southern California, Prime Pest Control in Spokane, Washington. They serve customers in eastern Washington and northern Idaho. They also Edge Pest Control in Austin, LLC out of Texas. They bought them, and R.P. Lee Termite and Pest Control in College Station, Texas. They also bought ABC Home and Commercial Services of Houston and Atlanta branch. And right here in Miami, I remember reading the story of how these people first started in the business, and they sold burger bug killers based in Miami. There's a complete list. You can check it out at mypmp.net. They've gotten very aggressive, buying 7 companies out in the first quarter of 2016, and that could mean good and bad. Depending on where you're at. If you're probably on the consolidation side, it's probably not good for you. But if you are a pest control company in those areas, know that they've been sold, and you can start, targeting their customers because some customers are not going to want to switch in the meantime to another type of company, and that's always an opportunity for people to get new business. So keep an eye on that. There is a new discovery called an Ovillanta. It's half English and half Spanish. It's Spanglish. A bunch of entomologists were studying in South America. They did a similar study in Canada, where what they did this year, they looked for ways that they could control mosquitoes, especially with the new advent of the Zika virus and the Aedes mosquito, using common stuff that they found. And what they did is they took where mosquitoes love to go is inside tires. And they took a tire, they cut it like a wedge across it, and then they took a cap and made a cap from another piece of that and made this little an oval shaped, like a football shaped, with 2 pieces of tire together, and they filled it with water, and then they use pyriproxyfen, which is I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's an IGR, and I use it quite a bit for mosquito control. And what they did is they used a percentage of it in there to test when the mosquito larva went in there. Then it would carry the product with them, probably to other areas where the mosquitoes are breeding, and then also transmit the IGR, sterilizing the it's the ovicide. So they basically controlled the mosquitoes, the larvae, in this, and then they put this little PVC pipe where they can drain it, recycle the water, take all the larvae out, and put it back in. It's a fascinating study. It was out. I got links to it from the Oxford Journal of Medical Entomology, and it's a fascinating study. It may be something that you could probably test. I'm doing a lot of testing down here with mosquito on what's working, and putting some traps out and putting things and doing some testing here myself based on a lot of these studies that I've been reading. Some stuff works, some stuff is junk, but this one I think I'm going to give it a try and see if we can do it this way, and catch some more mosquitoes. I mean, the product is in Pivot 10 and in Distance IGR. Also, Tico has a low percentage of it. It's like a 1%, but Tico has 2 IGRs in it. But the 10% Pivot is what you can use to check that out and see if it works. Now, there's a couple of articles that came out, and you got all these guys, you got bloggers trying to make headlines and sell whatever it is they're trying to sell on their website. And the pyriproxyfen is the cause of the shrinking head on the babies and not the Zika virus, and that is the cause of it. And of course, it's been debunked by the Entomological Society of America, has said no, that's not the case. Also, the Brazilian government has also started the association between has said that's not the case, and I got a couple of links to that that you can check out and read up. So when your customer tells you, these products I don't want to use because this is what causes damage to my baby, you can say, no, here's the study, and it's pretty much a hoax and just bad stuff that people put out. Some people ought to be shot for putting stuff out like that. But anyway, you got to, in a marketing world, you got to sell your product. So, you use whatever you have to. There's also in the world news, the summit of the 80s mosquito crisis in America. It was a one-day, check it out, because there's also valuable information you can share with your customers. I get a lot of calls from people freaked out right now about the 80s mosquito. And I basically have to, bring them down to earth, calm them down and say, look, I'll sell you a mosquito service. I'll sell you a mosquito system. I'll sell you whatever you want. But the reality is that there isn't yet one documented case in Miami-Dade of anybody getting it. Everybody that's gotten it has gotten it from overseas when they traveled. Could we have a case? Could we have an outbreak? Yes, anything is possible. But I think that fear-mongering and putting up a page that, our service protects against the Zika virus, and the Aedes mosquito is one of those mosquitoes that feeds all day long. And unless you have, you're treating areas with water, and, I got a call from a lady getting, bit and wanted to know about the mosquito. And basically she has no water in her property sitting anywhere. She has no shrubs. It's all lawn. These mosquitoes have nowhere to breed in her yard. So where are they breeding? Well, they're breeding right in front of her house on the street, in the sewer, in the drain system. And I said, you got to call mosquito control and get them to take care of it, because this is not something that I can treat, and I'm not going to sell you a service that won't solve your problem and you don't need. So, it's having a conscience, having good information, being educated. I mean, if you're out, because you're going to sell anything to anyone because they asked for it, fine, have at it. But, to really not do that, I think, to do that is a really lack of integrity on a lot of people's part. And I'm seeing a lot of it. So, hey, if people were having a party over the weekend, said, can you come and spray? And, just so we can be comfortable, that's a different matter. I want to enjoy my backyard. I don't want to get bitten. But to say I'm going to get the Zika virus because, I got bit by a mosquito. If you don't, you're going to get it. I don't think that's, really nice. Cut it out. So check it out. It's called, it's at entomologychallenge.org. And there was a summit where about 60 researchers got together in Brazil to discuss the issue. And you can find the what's out there. In that. Well, let's get to our main topic. You want to get into L&O, and you want to, earn more business. You want to get into something you haven't done. I got a lot of experience in this part. What you got to understand about L&O is that it's totally different, the way it's sold and the way it's performed, than GHP, and totally different from termite. Psychologically, emotionally, it's totally different. I mean, when you're selling a termite service, what you're offering the customer is peace of mind that their property isn't going to deteriorate, get eaten up, and have tens of thousands of dollars worth of repairs. That it isn't gonna, their value of their home isn't going to go down, that it's actually going to go up because it hasn't gotten termites. And that's what you're selling. In GHP, you're selling peace of mind that the person is not going to be seeing bugs all the time, and their food is not going to be contaminated. They're not going to have an infestation. And you're selling a peace of mind, and you're selling a luxury ticket item for people that don't want to do anything themselves. When it comes to L&O, it's totally different. L&O is purely purchase. It's a discretionary item, totally discretionary. The people who buy L&O buy it because they want a spectacular looking lawn and garden, and they don't want to do it themselves because it's not as easy as people think. It isn't that I go down to my hardware store and I buy a bunch of products and I apply it. Every time if I had a story, I had a dime for every time I've heard somebody burn their lawn with atrazine, I could retire from this business. Because it's just one of those things that people think that my father-in-law did that not too long ago. He says, why did you do that? Why didn't you just call me? I mean, your lawn looks fine. Why didn't you just call me? I come over here and I'll spray it. I didn't want to bug you. And he puts atrazine, and I go in there and says, what the heck happened to your lawn? He poured it, with this machine, and then he was just dumping it. He wasn't even spreading it evenly, and he burns his lawn. So L&O is purely a cosmetic. It's a vanity service. I mean, if you want to look at it purely from that perspective, it's a vanity service. I mean, nobody needs L&O. People buy it because they want a nice looking lawn. The people that buy this kind of service are the people that expect a perfect lawn. The kind that if you're the landscaper and you leave one blade that you didn't mow, they're going to call you back and say, you need to come back and mow my lawn because you left that one blade. I mean, those are the kind of people. And what people have a hard time understanding and selling L&O is that, you're selling beauty. You're selling aesthetics. You're selling dreams. You're selling of what their garden could look like if you took it over. You see? And it's a totally different mind shift from, you've got roaches, you need to treat this right now, or, you're going to get salmonella and E. coli, or if you don't treat this roof right now, this house, that roof's going to cave in and you're going to have $50,000 worth of repairs. Totally different. You're selling on an emotional basis, but based on what people want. And what they want is, people who buy L&O want L&O. It's kind of like the person who buys, a Bentley. Nobody needs a $300,000 vehicle. Nobody needs a Lamborghini. Nobody needs a Ferrari. Nobody needs a Rolex. People who buy those kind of products want it. They want it, and they're willing to pay for it. And some people are I get a lot of calls from people who are under the impression that if I just showed up every 3 months and I sprayed everything, they're going to have a beautiful garden. Why? Because there's a couple of national companies selling quarterly services down here in South Florida when they don't work. I mean, they'll work up north. They might work somewhere else. They don't work down here. And I get all, can't you come every 3 months? I said, no. I look at houses like that all day long. And the worst thing about it is they're coming in with these like dirt cheap lowball pricing where they're doing, a quarter acre house for like $69 every quarter. And they're coming in and spraying the lawn and fertilizing it. And that's it. And then the shrubs and the palms and everything else, it just looks hideous. And they say, well, that's extra. And, the customer is expecting everything is going to be taken care of. And people do that. But what are the challenges? Well, the challenges is also in a lot of the labels. Yeah, if you're doing exterior perimeter treatment with GHP, and all of a sudden you're doing a 1 foot perimeter on every house, and I have people that I see them that's what they do. They do, and they can do with 1 gallon of chemical. They can do 3 houses. Because you can get 1,000 linear feet out of 1 gallon on a B&G. So the average house is about 250, 300 linear feet around it. You can get 3-4 houses if you really push it with 1 gallon and, $75 to $1.50 worth of chemical. And the big challenges that people have is when they get into L&O, they realize how chemical intense it is. The second thing that they get into is they've got labels that they're used to using in L&O. I mean, in GHP, like for termites. For instance, one company makes 2 different products with 2 different labels. It's the same active ingredient, the same concentration, the same everything. And yet they're labeled one for one thing and another for another. So if you look at Merit 75 WSP from Bayer, it's labeled for termites, lawn, ornamentals, root drench. I mean, it's very versatile, that label. You can use it for everything. Yet they make another product called Premise, which is strictly 75% wettable powder, but it is exclusively used for termite. You cannot use it on ornamentals. And I get a lot of people all the time says, but this one's cheaper. This one's on sale. It's the same. Look at the back. It's the same active ingredient. the same concentration, the same little bag. It's exactly the same. And yet you can't use it because it's not on the label. And a lot of people fall into that. They come from, I get a lot of people that come from nursery environment. And they want to start using the cheap chemicals they use in the nursery environment because you can spray thousands and thousands of plants with very little chemical, but you can't use that chemical in ornamentals. And they want to use this, but now I have to go and buy this more expensive label, which is the same exact thing. And I said, yep, you're absolutely right. You just can't use it. So depending on where you're at, it's adapting yourself to that industry and know that you're going to have to probably carry 2 lines of the same product or switch over to another label that's more versatile. That's one of the reasons why Talstar, bifenthrin, it's so overused. The label is so freaking flexible. I mean, you can take a half an ounce of bifenthrin, put it in a tank per gallon, all right, or per 1,000 square feet, and you can spray shrubs with it. You can spray a perimeter with it. You can spray the lawn for chinch bugs with a half an ounce of product. You can spray for ticks. You can spray for fleas. You can pour that into your B&G, go indoors and do all the perimeters and go to town on that house with bifenthrin. It's one of those labels that is so flexible that it doesn't require any knowledge to break it up. But when you go into lawn and ornamental, use a product like Merit or imidacloprid, you have 3 different dosages. You got one for shrubs, one for trees, one for lawn, and one for foliar. And you cannot use the dosage for foliar on lawns because it isn't enough active ingredient to kill the insects and get into that plant. And you cannot use the rate that you apply to a lawn to shrubs. It is totally illegal. It's too much. It's like 1,000 times more. And this is where people fall apart. I've trained a lot of people on LNO who did GHP. I have a personal friend who's a family member, and he has his own pest control company. And he wanted to, make more money because he says, I'm already going to their house. And people are, why can't you spray my lawn? I said, I don't do lawns. I don't do trees. I don't do shrubs. I don't do mosquito. I don't do none of that. I just do GHP. I come in, I go in, he's a typical spray guy, goes inside, sprays all your perimeters with bifenthrin, sprays your outside. Occasionally he'll use granular and he'll sprinkle it around your house, and that's it. He's done. And he wanted to do it. I said, come on, I'll give you the ID so you can learn. Come with me on the weekends when you're not doing it, because he didn't work Saturdays. He only worked Monday through Friday. Talk about being niche. I mean, that's for sure. But then he wanted to get into this. And after a month of training, I took him for 4 weekends. I said, I'll teach you everything you need to know in about 4 weekends. And, you already know the business. You understand chemicals. You understand, a lot of the things. I don't have to start from zero. And to doing a lot of the things that we were doing. And I, called him a couple of months later. How's it been? No, bro, forget it. That is so much work. I cannot do it. I mean, it's just too much. And because you have to do a lot of follow-ups, you have to do a lot of inspection. You can't assume the product is going to work. You're in an exterior environment. So the chemical usage is different. It's very chemical intense. I mean, you're dealing with funguses. You're dealing with weeds. You're dealing with insects. And then you're also dealing with fertilization and micronutrition and deficiencies. And you got to learn 5 times more than a GHP person. Because in GHP, you might have 12 insects. And as long as you learn that insect biology, you're good. Well, here you got to learn the insect biology. And then now you got to learn the pathology, all the diseases that plant can get. The lawn can get, the palms can get, the trees can get. Then you have to decide, is it a deficiency or is it a disease? Because you got to know the plant, and you got to become familiar with those plants. Then you got to second guess and says, is that plant even in the right place? And it's just an environmental stress that the plant's under because the landscaper put it in the wrong place. You have no idea how many arguments I have with landscapers and homeowners where the landscaper put a plant where the homeowner wanted. He didn't know it didn't go there, put it there, and the customer's calling me, hey, listen, I got this new plant, and it's doing terrible. I need you to put something on it. Find out what's wrong. And I show up to the house and I'm going, it's a full sun plant and you stuck it in shade. There is no way that I'm going to be able to do anything. You got to move it from there and put it over there. But why didn't the landscaper tell me? He says, did you tell him to put it there? And he says, yeah. He says, he's not going to argue with you. You're the one writing the check. So, those are the things that it's a lot harder to do, lawn and ornamental. But it is very, very, very lucrative. It is very, very, if you are a specialist and you enjoy working outside and you enjoy plants, I'm telling you, it's an awesome, awesome industry to be in. And there's also different rules, because one thing is, if you come from a nursery environment, nurseries have, on most products have, 8-hour reentry times, 12-hour reentry times. When you apply a product, you can't go back in there. Nobody can go in unless they're wearing PPE. With lawn and ornamental, all you got to do is put a sign on the lawn that says, do not stay off till dry. The challenge is always, when you are you going to be a cheap L&O guy, or are you going to be a top-notch quality L&O guy? Because the chemicals you can buy, if you want to do atrazine and zimazine and 2,4-D, those are 50-year-old products that you can buy relatively cheap. Of course, you can't apply atrazine when it's 104. You'll torch that lawn. So you're limited to fall and spring for your weed control if you want to go with those cheap products. 2,4-D, I don't even know why that stuff's even on the market. So you need to go with more modern products. But then you look at those prices and you say, my goodness, a bottle of weed control is $150, $200 for a limited label, because it doesn't have every weed on it. You need to carry 3 different ones. And then, but when you break down that you're applying, 8 to 9 ounces of that chemical per 1,000 square feet, and you buy a 2.5 gallon and it's gone in a week. And then you look at one of these products and you need a tablespoon, for 4,000 square feet. And it doesn't come in a 2.5 gallon. It comes in a little wettable granule, you can stick it in your back pocket. Then you're saying, oh, and you do a cost analysis. You figure that the cost of applying it is so much less. You get into fertilizers, and fertilizers have gone through the roof. It's very expensive to do L&O. I'm saying it's a luxury ticket item, and I sell it as a luxury ticket item. I sell it as if I was selling a Bentley. I have no problem looking you in the eye and say, this, Mr. Customer, this account's going to cost you $3,000 a year for, a half acre, a full acre house is going to cost you $6,000 a year, Mr. Customer, because you have so many palm trees. I have no problem looking somebody in the eye and asking them for $20,000 to do something. A lot of people do, because they're used to the $300 a year annual contract. They're used to the termite treatment that might cost $600. When you tell somebody it's $2,000 to tint their house, well, it's a $100,000 house. I think at $2,000 is a wise investment when you break it down to the ridiculous, when you reduce it to the ridiculous in a sales presentation. You're spending 1 penny for every dollar of equity or whatever. In ornamentals, it's about, I want that beautiful garden. I want that landscape. And then you got to make sure the cultural practices are spot on. If not, the irrigation, who controls it? And things like that. We control the irrigation in our business. We tell the customer that the landscaper is not allowed to touch that irrigation. Because when he decides to put water every day on that lawn and it gets a fungus, we got to shell out $4.50 per every 1,000 square feet of chemical to control that problem, because chances are we'll have to do 2 applications. When you get excess weeds, because he's scalping the lawn and you're watering it too much, we're the ones that have to apply the product. So it's very, very difficult to sell a customer on this, but the customer that wants it. And I get a lot of calls from people that think they want it. It's a big difference between spraying a lawn for ticks, for fleas, and then making the lawn look beautiful. The insect control doesn't make the lawn look beautiful. It's the right cultural practice with the right program, with the right care, with the right follow-up. And we have to follow up constantly. Like if I know I got a tree that I treat, I know that I got to go back in a week, inspect, probably treat again. If we're spraying it, if we're doing injecting, we're doing a trunk injection, or we're doing a soil drench, or we're doing a soil injection, I know pretty much what I can expect and when I have to do follow-ups. And it's really, really follow-up intensive. That most people fail at L&O because they come from GHP, they do one application, they leave, and they said, I'll see you next month. And with L&O, you got to follow up. You got to follow up. That's the key. So I hope, guys, that this helps you. This helps you understand a little bit of my world if you're not exposed, because I know a lot of the guys that listen to this program have been exclusively GHP. And I haven't talked much about L&O, but we're going to be covering a lot of things in L&O because I think it's a marvelous market. I think it's a marvelous idea for some people to really enjoy themselves. I enjoy having conversations with customers about their plants. It's an emotional thing. It's about, I get customers that tell me all the time, that plant right there, I planted that tree when my son was born, and he's 25, he's 35 now. And I really would hate for something to happen to the tree. It's an emotional thing with a lot of people. So, guys, hey, I am really, really, really excited to do this show. I thank you for an awesome year. I hope I have another awesome year doing this. And until next time, hey, have a great one.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.